4th November 2009, Chongqing, China. Kuangzhijun and his wife were working away from the village, leaving behind their only child, Kuangzhijun, at home. That night, his wife had this weird dream, in which there was an unknown person broke into her house in the village and urged Kuang's wife to go back and check upon her son. As she was about to go into her son's room, she snapped back to reality. Kuang's wife, feeling a strong premonition about something had happened in their house back in the village, woke up her husband and told him about the dream and her unfounded worry about their child. In the end, Kuang agreed to accompany his wife to go home and verify this ill intuition. The couple returned their home the very next day and discovered that both the main door and the side door were locked from inside, whereas the back door to the house, which was seldom used, was left half open. This reminds Kuang of his wife's weird dream, and a sudden chill shoots up his spine. He needs to check on his son, and quick. As he pushed open the back door, he was greeted by a horrifying scene. Inside the house, his son, dressed up in a red-colored one-piece female swimsuit and a skirt, both hands were tied to the roof beam, had already died of suffocation. The only child in the family, Kuangzhijun, was an amicable and friendly kid who should have not antagonized anyone as his parents knew of. Even if that was the case, murdering a 13-year-old kid would be taking things too far. Speaking of their child's age, he was 13-year-old and 13 days at the time of his death. As we all know, 13 is an extremely unlucky number in Western culture. According to the local police report, there were several odd discoveries about his death. First, when the victim died, he was wearing a red-colored female dress which belonged to his elder cousin. A white flower was clipped to the chest section of the dress. Second, the manner of death was different from other people who died of the same cause, suffocation. The rope was tied around his hands instead of his neck. His two hands have both been bound 12 rounds by the same rope, and the same goes to his legs. The knot tied was very professional, something unlikely done by a 13-year-old kid. Third, the boy was also wearing a female one-piece swimsuit, and in the chest section, there were 2 black fabrics attached. The journalist later asked if the swimsuit also belonged to the kid's cousin. His father denied the claim. Fourth, there was a brass weight from those Chinese traditional weighing tools attached to his feet. His feet was hanging in the air as his whole body being tied to the rope to the roof beam, and the weight barely touched the ground from his feet. There was also a victim's urination on the ground. Last but not least, it was alleged that on the boy's forehead there is a hole pinned through by needles, and the date of his death was coincidentally as his 13 years and 13 days. as the victim did not have any external wounds and bruises, except for the visible lines on the body due to strangulations by the rope for extended period. The forensic did autopsy on the corpses to check the inside, and there was nothing out of ordinary. Coupled with further inspections around the scene and questionings of neighbors, it was concluded by the police that the incident was accidental death arising from erotic asphyxiation, or in other words, breath control play. However, this kind of practice to acquire sexual pleasure is especially susceptible to accidental death due to asphyxia. The reasons being that the boy was at home alone at the time of his death. The victim was introverted and quiet, which rules out the possibility of antagonizing local interest groups. It was later revealed by his parents that the boy has a habit of cross-dressing. There were also drops of candle wax which was likely set up by the victim himself, suggesting that the boy has a tendency to self-inflict pains, a behavior typically displayed by masochists. Autopsy report shows the victim died of suffocation, and there were visible semen specks around the scene, implying that the victim had experienced orgasm at the time of his death. There was no sign of physical fight nor struggle at the scene. As soon as the police report was finalized and made public, people won't accept the result, as they deem that it is impossible for such a young boy to go so far, such that he inflict pain on himself to derive pleasure. And there are still doubts, such as how did he pull off such an extensive and intricate setup alone? This was clearly not a one-man action. As such, there were several theories circulated online. An overwhelming majority of them were related to Chinese witchcraft and exorcism. In the end, there are still so many points of contention in the case, and not everyone is on the same page here, which will often lead to the aggrandization of the enigma to the event. Anyway, before a convincing story arrives, we can only accept the conclusion as it is, and I doubt the day of truth will come anytime soon. Thank you so much for your support and interest in our free short documentary videos. We endeavor to keep making such content relating to crime, weird and everyday morbid stuff, and share them with y'all. If you have anything that you are interested about, please tell us in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe and see you next time.